In 2003, the world watched as US and UK-led forces entered Iraq, searching for weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. Leaders warned Iraq might have chemical, biological or nuclear weapons, raising fears they could fall into the wrong hands. Memories of chemical weapons in the Iran-Iraq war made the threat feel real. News reports and speeches made the search seem urgent. But after months of searching, the expected new weapons never appeared. What they found instead became a hidden chapter of the Iraq War, changing what we know about modern conflict. Before the invasion, intelligence agencies and leaders spoke about modern weapons being ready for use in Iraq. The world was told to expect new, advanced chemical and biological weapons, maybe even nuclear devices. Maps and diagrams on television showed secret labs and missiles. There was a sense that Iraq had the latest technology for making deadly weapons. When the search began, soldiers and experts moved carefully, always expecting to stumble on something new and dangerous. They followed leads, searched bunkers, and tested air and soil for traces of chemicals. The fear of a hidden modern arsenal shaped every mission. However, as time went by, the teams did not find what they expected. There were no new secret factories filled with fresh nerve agents or biological toxins. Instead, the search often turned up old, rusted shells from past wars. The weapons were not the high-tech threats that had been pictured before the invasion. This gap between what was feared and what was found is central to understanding the war's hidden chapter. The reality on the ground did not match the stories told before the war, but the danger was still present in another form. As the search continued, soldiers began to discover old stockpiles of chemical weapons. Most of these munitions dated back to the 1980s, when Iraq had used chemical agents during the Iran-Iraq War. They found artillery shells, rockets, and bombs filled with substances like mustard gas or sarin. Many of these weapons were in poor condition. Some were buried under sand or stored in forgotten warehouses. The chemicals inside had often degraded, but they remained dangerous. In some cases, the shells leaked or were broken, releasing toxic vapors. The discovery of these old weapons created new problems. Soldiers needed to identify the munitions quickly to avoid exposure. Sometimes the markings had faded, making it hard to tell if a shell was filled with explosives or chemicals. These findings were not widely reported at first. The focus stayed on the search for new weapons, and the presence of old munitions was sometimes seen as a side issue. But for the soldiers on the ground, these old shells were a daily risk that could not be ignored. For many soldiers, the first encounter with a chemical weapon was unexpected. Often, these discoveries happened during routine patrols or when searching abandoned military sites. Soldiers would move through bunkers or dig up caches, not knowing what was inside. When they found suspicious munitions, protocols called for immediate action. They would secure the area and call in specialists. Sometimes the shells would be leaking or covered in strange substances. The air could smell sour or cause eyes to sting, a warning sign of chemical agents. Soldiers described feeling a sudden dread when they realized what they had found. Even old chemical weapons could burn skin, damage lungs, or cause lasting health problems. Some soldiers reported burning sensations, blisters, or trouble breathing after being exposed. These moments were tense and frightening. The danger was not just from enemy fighters, but from the hidden leftovers of an earlier war. For many, these encounters became some of the most memorable and troubling parts of their service in Iraq. Once chemical munitions were found, bomb disposal teams moved in. These experts had special training to deal with explosives and chemical weapons, but Iraq presented, well, some unique challenges. The old, unstable shells could go off at any time or release toxic agents if handled wrong. Teams wore protective suits and used robots to inspect and move the weapons when possible. They worked slowly, often in extreme heat, to make sure they could disarm or safely destroy the munitions. Sometimes, the only way to deal with a shell was to blow it up in place, risking a release of chemicals into the air. The work was dangerous and stressful. Even with the best equipment, the risk of exposure was high. Teams had to clean up carefully to avoid carrying traces of chemicals back to their bases. Decontamination tents and showers became a regular part of their routine. Despite their training, many felt that the old weapons were unpredictable. The mix of age, corrosion, and unknown substances made every mission different. The teams took pride in their work, knowing they were protecting others, but the risks stayed with them long after they left Iraq. Handling old chemical weapons came at a cost. Some soldiers were exposed to mustard gas or other agents when shells broke open or leaked. The effects could be immediate: burns, blisters, or trouble breathing. Others developed symptoms days or weeks later, not always knowing what had happened. Many injuries went unreported at first. Some soldiers were afraid to say they had been exposed, worried it might affect their careers. Others did not recognize the symptoms right away, thinking minor burns or coughs would go away. For those seriously affected, medical care was not always easy to find. At the time, some doctors were not prepared to treat chemical injuries, especially from old munitions. Soldiers had to push for tests and treatment, sometimes facing doubt or confusion. The hidden nature of these injuries meant that many suffered in silence. Years later, some veterans still deal with health problems linked to their service. Their stories are a reminder of the dangers that linger long after a war has ended. Over time, some of the stories about chemical exposures began to surface. Veterans spoke out about their injuries and the difficulties they faced getting recognition. They described feeling left out of the main story of the war, as if their experiences did not fit the official narrative. Families and advocacy groups joined these veterans, pressing governments to acknowledge the risks they faced. They called for better medical care, more research, and honest records of what had happened. It became clear that many cases had not been reported or tracked properly. Some governments eventually began to review these cases and offer support. New policies were put in place to help veterans exposed to chemical agents. Still, many felt that the help arrived too late and that more needed to be done for those affected. The struggle for recognition is still ongoing. For many veterans, speaking up about their experiences is a way to help others and to make sure that the hidden dangers of war are not forgotten. The discovery of old chemical weapons in Iraq forced many people to rethink what they knew about the war. The focus had been on modern weapons that were never found. Instead, soldiers faced dangers from the past, leftover shells and forgotten stockpiles. This changed how experts and leaders talked about weapons of mass destruction. It showed that old weapons could still be deadly, and that wars leave behind problems that last for decades. Military training and healthcare for soldiers began to include more about chemical dangers, even from old munitions. The stories of those affected led to new research on the long-term effects of chemical exposure. Scientists and doctors worked to understand the risks and find better treatments. The lessons from Iraq have helped other countries prepare for similar dangers in the future. The experiences in Iraq remind us that the aftermath of war can be just as dangerous as the fighting itself. Learning from these hidden chapters helps protect soldiers and civilians in future conflicts. The story of old chemical weapons in Iraq is not just about forgotten shells or hidden dangers. It is about people, soldiers who faced risks they never expected, and families who still live with the impact. Their experiences add depth to our understanding of the Iraq War. These hidden chapters teach us to look beyond headlines and official reports. They remind us that the effects of war last long after the fighting stops. The dangers left behind can shape lives for years or even generations. By listening to the stories of those who served, we honor their sacrifices and learn important lessons for the future. We see that even in well-known wars, there are stories waiting to be told. Stories that can change how we care for veterans, protect communities, and plan for peace. As we reflect on the Iraq War, we should remember not just what was expected, but what was actually found, and the people whose lives were changed by it. These lessons will help guide us as we face new challenges in a complex world.